students, alumni and the Alumni Association, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen. I recognize that this is also a very special time for family members to join in the celebration, given the various support roles they played in ensuring that one of their own reaches this significant milestone. Some of them are here with us in person, while those who could not be here in person are joining these proceedings on our various live stream platforms. As a university, we owe a great debt to your family and loved ones outside of the academy, from whom you received support and encouragement until you summited this hill, with members of your family and loved ones witnessing your well-deserved achievement. Within the academy, there are a few names worth mentioning that have been part of this journey. On your behalf, Professor Athiemoolam, please allow me to recognize Professor Susan van Rensburg for her contribution to your academic career by serving as your supervisor for both your master's and doctoral studies, and for being an excellent mentor and guide. Professor Hanlie Dippenaar, a friend, a comrade, a confidant, is also here to bear witness to this auspicious occasion. We heartily welcome her. I wish to further acknowledge Dr. Malve Mollendorf, who I understand invited you to participate in the DAD-sponsored SEMESA program that contributed to your research and academic career. It was your contact with Dr. von Mollendorf that opened pathways of collaboration with colleagues from Moi University, the University of Dar es Salaam, and the Ugandan Management Institute. As Mandela University, we take great pride when we see members of faculty dedicated to working with their counterparts on the African continent. This is putting into practical effect Nelson Mandela University's vision of being an African university known for its cutting-edge scholarship, and in particular, our efforts for trans and multidisciplinary transformative engagement in service of society. In that respect, please allow me to extend a special word of welcome to your colleagues, Professor John Changach and Professor Susan Kugat, and a few others from Moi University in Kenya. On the same breath, please allow me to register a special word of welcome to Professor Agnes Kibui, your ex-doctoral student, who completed her studies in 2008 and has been routinely going out of her way to ensure a comfortable stay whenever you are in Kenya. Professor Athiemoolam, your streak for collaboration across institutions is evident, as I now have the pleasure to acknowledge two of your peers from the University of KwaZulu-Natal, Professor Daisy Pillay and Professor Ansuri Pillay. We are grateful for the role this pair played in enriching your academic career. Your friends from far afield are also joining us today, and please indulge me in extending a special word of welcome. From Sweden, we have colleagues Professor Kirsten von Brommensen, Professor Magnus Persson, and several others joining us on the various online platforms. From Germany, we have Professor Claudia Lorenscheidt from Coburg University, also on the online platform. We acknowledge the valuable mentoring role she played during your doctoral studies. Also in Germany, I wish to acknowledge Dr. Silke Bakker from the Karl von Ossietzky University in Oldenburg for the many years of academic collaboration. I understand that Dr. Bakker is not alone on this platform, as several other colleagues in Oldenburg have also joined in on the online platform to witness this momentous occasion. Ladies and gentlemen, an auspicious occasion such as this provides the university the opportunity to acknowledge and introduce full professors to the academic as well as the general university community. It affords professors the opportunity to share their achievements in teaching, research, innovation and engagement activities. This is a moment for professors to showcase their scholarship and achievements. This rite of passage has for many years meant that professors have to profess or declare publicly their knowledge and work to the academic community and the general public. This evening, as Nelson Mandela University, we inaugurate Professor Athiemoolam into the rank of professor, and him thus becoming a full member of the University Senate. Professor Athiemoolam, we are also honored that at this point in your career, you have remained a part of the university family. We are proud of your achievements, and we eagerly look forward to listening to your lecture tonight. Once more, we congratulate you on your outstanding achievement. Being promoted to the level of a full professor is a pinnacle of achievement as a scholar, and a solid affirmation by your peers of your long life work. I now request the Executive Dean of the Faculty of Education, Professor Heloise Satora, to introduce Professor Athiemoolam to the congregation. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Acting Vice-Chancellor, Dr. Muki Muheng, Deputy Vice-Chancellors present here this evening, Executive Deans, members of the Faculty of Education and other faculties, senior academics, colleagues from other universities, students, friends and family that are present in person and online, and of course, our distinguished lecturer, Professor Logamurthie Athiemoolam. I would like to extend a special welcome to Logan's special guests who are in person in the venue and those online. Thanks for sharing this wonderful occasion with us. I am Professor Heloise Satora, the Executive Dean of the Faculty of Education. It is with great pleasure that I stand before you this evening to introduce a distinguished scholar whose contribution to education, and specifically teacher education, have been nothing short of remarkable. Prof. Athiemoolam completed his schooling career during the troubled apartheid era. He commenced his primary schooling at Forest Hill Primary School in Port Elizabeth. But due to the Group Areas Act and the forced removals, his family was relocated to Malabar, and he continued his schooling at Hulop Secondary School until grade 11. The family moved to East London in 1980, where Logan completed grade 12 at East London High School. After matriculating with a matric exemption, he received a bursary to pursue a Bachelor of Pedagogics degree in 1981 at the Durban Westville University, specializing in English, Afrikaans, and education. He followed this up with a B.Ed honours degree from Rhodes University and a diploma in special education from UNISA. Subsequently, Logan was accepted onto the University of Port Elizabeth's Masters in Alternative Education program and completed the M.Ed program successfully. He then pursued his doctoral studies under the guidance of Professor Susan van Rensburg from UPE and Professor Wolfgang Nitsch from Oldenburg University in Germany, with a thesis entitled a comparative study of multicultural education in high schools in Port Elizabeth, which focused on the strategies adopted by mono-ethnic schools to accommodate diversity after the desegregation of schools in 1994. Logan is a lifelong learner, and after his PhD, he also successfully completed an honors degree in English and an honors degree in psychology. He taught English at Hulop Secondary School for 12 years before taking up a lecturing post at Vista University in 1997. When Vista was incorporated into Nelson Mandela Metropolitan University, he was appointed as lecturer in the Faculty of Education. He held various leadership positions in the faculty, including being the head of program for the Advanced Certificate in Education, Language of Learning and Teaching, which focused on improving teachers' qualifications in specifically the rural areas of the Eastern Cape. Logan was promoted to senior lecturer in 2010 and subsequently to associate professor in 2015. His research-related activities are multidisciplinary in nature across various fields in education, involving issues of language teaching and learning, diversity pedagogy, drama in education, and education management and leadership. To date, he has successfully supervised 22 honors treaties, 12 masters, and 11 doctoral students. He has written 31 articles in peer-reviewed journals, 14 book chapters, and presented 60 papers at national and international conferences. Logan is always willing to assist and support research initiatives, and as such, he has reviewed several journal articles and examined several master's and doctoral theses. He is also currently a member of the editorial team of the Educational Research for Social Change journal. Over his 25-year career in higher education, he received several awards, including a Fulbright scholarship to study at the University of Indiana. He also received the Mandela University Excellent Teacher Award and the Mandela University Distinguished Teacher Award. Furthermore, he received the Faculty of Education Researcher of the Year Award in 2019. Prof. Athiemoolam has an extensive network of international partners that he collaborates with, and established good connections with colleagues from Gothenburg University as well as Oldenburg University. Logan is known for his expertise in using drama in education, and he often gets invited by these partner institutions to present guest lectures and workshops on drama in education. He has also presented guest lectures at Moi University, the University of Dar es Salaam, and Adamas University in Calcutta. Logan's passion for education motivates him to participate in various educational and community engagement projects. He has been involved in the arrangement of various matric intervention programs where he and his methodology students assist grade 12 learners to prepare for their final English examinations. He is also involved in the DARD-funded SAMISA and Dimensions of Diversity projects. Prof. Athiemoolam is also an active member of various professional associations, including TESOL, Teaching English to Other Language Speakers, and IASA, the Education Association of South Africa. Logan is passionate about education. He has worked relentlessly towards improving education in South Africa. He has dedicated his life's work to constantly seeking new and alternative ways to enhance his own teaching as well as that of the students he prepares to teach in the classrooms of the world. Logan has left an indelible mark on many a student, teachers, and his peers. His inaugural lecture this evening is a culmination of his hard work and dedication to education. In his lecture entitled, Rethinking Our Pedagogical Approaches in Teacher Education to Subvert the Neo-Liberal Stronghold on Higher Education, he focuses on alternative pedagogical approaches, including transformative pedagogy, cultural responsive pedagogies, and arts-based pedagogies. And he explains how he has used these pedagogies to militate against neoliberalist pedagogies. Logan and I go a long way back. He was on the interview panel when I first applied for a post in the faculty. And ever since my appointment in 2009, Logan has always been there to guide, to support, and to mentor me. It is thus an honor and a privilege for me to now call up to the podium my esteemed colleague and dear friend, Professor Logamurthie Athiemoolam. Please join me, colleagues, in extending a warm welcome to a scholar whose dedication to education continues to inspire us. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Acting Vice-Chancellor, colleagues, friends, students, family members, all those online, and those present here today. I wish to extend a hearty welcome to one and all at this inaugural lecture. Today's event is such an emotional and also humbling experience for me, and I have a lump in my throat. And the reason being that there were so many people that helped me to get to where I am, because I am the sum total of all the people who touched my life in different ways, and many of them have passed on. So it's actually very emotional for me, and I want to give thanks to first and foremost the Almighty, who guided me through troubled times. It wasn't an easy journey. We have a lot of mountains to climb, and when we get to the top, there's so many more that we have to get to. And my parents for being with me every step of the way. All my teachers, primary school teachers, secondary school, my lecturers. I had such amazing lecturers. All my friends, family members, and my colleagues at my first school, Hulop Secondary School in Malabar. I learned so much from all my colleagues there. And my amazing colleagues from the ex-Vista University. That was a home away from home for me. And it was a good starting place for my career. And members of the Faculty of Education at Nelson Mandela University. And I also want to thank the two universities for the amazing opportunities that they created for me to be able to conduct my research, to supervise, and to go on international trips to present my work in different countries. So thank you very, very much, especially now to the Nelson Mandela University. So ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, students, family, my topic is I think, a very topical one, because especially when we think about neoliberalism and how it's affecting our lives. So the topic that I want to touch on today is rethinking our pedagogical approaches in teacher education to subvert the neoliberal stronghold on higher education. And so this is a very topical issue that a lot of universities are having to grapple with in the present time. But my focus is not on neoliberalism per se, but on the pedagogies that we need to implement to subvert the technicist, instrumentalist ways of thinking of neoliberalists. So I want to provide you today with an overview of some of the pedagogies that I have embraced, that I think are so powerful, and that I believe that maybe we could embrace as very powerful ways of subverting the neoliberal pedagogy with its technicist approach, even to teacher education across all the disciplines. So how do I propose to present this lecture? Firstly, I will provide an overview of neoliberalism, because maybe I'm sure not everyone understands what it means. And then I want to look at briefly at the effects of neoliberalism on higher education. And then I want to examine the pedagogies that it espouses and the kinds of students that come out of those pedagogies. Narrow-minded thinking students. And it's all part of the neoliberalist agenda. And it's interesting to see, they see themselves as customers, because that's how the neoliberal system works. And then I want us to look at alternative pedagogies that we could implement in our classes that I've actually explored, and to provide an overview of these pedagogies. Especially, I've spent a lot of years from the time I taught in 1985. I've been working on, in my classes, transformative pedagogy. I've been looking at culturally responsive pedagogy and arts-based pedagogies. Those are the three that I think, there are so many, but those are the three that I've explored, and especially in my university teaching, I've used those extensively. And I think in order to kind of set the scene for my application of these pedagogies, I also feel it may be of value to colleagues to have a look at some of the projects that we undertook in each of those pedagogies. So I'm going to share those as a photo collage at the end as well. So just you can have a look at some of the work that the students have done arising out of the pedagogies that we've been using in the classes. So let me start off by saying that when we reflect on the idea of a university education, we see that this initial idea of the education is undergoing massive transformation with the infiltration of private sector thinking. That is very much aligned to neoliberalism. And that is involvement in the university space. And that private sector mentality is associated with corporatization and commodification. And we see it happening, the commodification of our knowledge being bought and sold. Now, when we look at the original conceptualization of a university education, it was there to empower young minds with critical and creative thinking skills so that they could participate more meaningfully and actively in society and be change agents. That is now being subverted by a neoliberalist agenda. So when we look at the focus of such an education, it was on the common good, and you see that mentioned quite extensively. And the conscientization of young people to critically reflect on the roles that they could play in effecting change and contributing to knowledge generation. However, this original aim of the university has undergone significant shifts with the onset of a neoliberal agenda, which purports, I must add, that universities need to focus on preparing students with the requisite technical skills so that they can become workers in a capitalist society. And we see that manifesting in our classes with the mentality of the students, because the schooling system has the same mentality, teaching to the test. So they come to the university, into the university system, and they say, but you're asking us to think critically and creatively. We wouldn't ask to do that. The teachers were only preparing us to write exams, and we were going to working through test papers. So we need to ask ourselves the questions, are these the kind of citizens that we want in South Africa? It's really something to think about. Now, I briefly want to just touch on neoliberalism, just to clarify what neoliberalism really means. So, according to the CFI team 2024, they describe neoliberalism as a move towards free markets, capitalism, a diversion from government ownership, and the typical policies aligned to neoliberalism are free trade, globalization, privatization, and the diversion of government spending for the stimulation and growth of private sector development at the expense of the public sector. So we can see that with this kind of mentality, the poorest of the poor, the marginalized, the downtrodden, the disenfranchised will be the ones that will be most affected. And so this kind of thinking is coming into the university level as well, into the university space. According to Montblot, she says that human relations, according to neoliberalism, are characterized as being controlled, and I think many of you will know, you can see how it's happening. Competition, because it regards citizens as consumers and maintains that an egalitarian society is both counterproductive and morally corrosive. So very strong words, because they have their own agenda in terms of what they intend to achieve. Since democratic choices are viewed within the context of buying and selling from the private sector, capitalism, commodification, the argument is that everyone will get what you deserve, and those who are unsuccessful are defined as losers. We are living in that kind of system now. So let us now, with that background to neoliberalism, let us look at higher education now specifically in terms of the kinds of pedagogies that neoliberalism is espousing, and we see this in the West. What's happening in the West? Certain publishing houses have taken the monopoly, and their agenda is the agenda that's being followed, you know, and so the knowledge is the knowledge that they want to kind of put forward. So that's what's happening there. So when we look at higher education, we see that neoliberal principles are affecting higher education, especially in terms of the way students perceive themselves, the way it's set up, etc. In the first instance, under neoliberalism, universities are perceived as a private investment by those in power rather than a public good, as I mentioned. Hence, as pointed out by Giraud, and he's one of the staunchest critiques of this neoliberal agenda, students are valued as human capital. Courses are determined by consumer demand, and governance is based on a Walmart model of union relations, which means unionization is not allowed. So we can see, especially in America, we see how neoliberal principles are invading the university space. And there are so many, many examples of this. So the application of economics logic and business principles to higher education means that students are deprived of the opportunity to think critically and creatively and to generate knowledge and to be knowledge producers, because they are stripped of their academic freedom in favor of the market economy and what the market requires. And that, of course, has implications for the the pedagogies that it's proposing. Because if you look at the pedagogies that neoliberalism proposes, it's exactly the pedagogies that Paulo Freire warned us about. The banking system. It's now the banking system in school, and it's also now infiltrating on a much larger scale in our higher education institutions as well. So what exactly is a university supposed to do? Giraud says a university is meant to be a critical institution aimed at cultivating intellectual insight, civic imagination, inquisitiveness, risk-taking, social responsibility, and the struggle for justice. And we see how this is now being undermined by neoliberal principles. We can see it clearly. However, from a neoliberal perspective, the university is perceived as an institution that prepares students for the world of work and not to reflect critically on issues affecting society at large or to be agents of change. And Giraud is quite critical when he says what this kind of neoliberalism is intending to do is to strip universities of its intellectual agenda because it wants to churn out people. Its agenda is anti-intellectualism and authoritarianism. And I think we are seeing that happening because we now have we don't seem to have many intellectuals around, even from the West. So that is an attack on intellectualism as well. I think specifically because they want to prepare, they don't want people to think critically or to question, and I'm gonna mention later on about Camus, the myth of Sisyphus, his existentialist philosophy, and I want to go into one of the excerpts that he gives us, and just to give you an idea of the kind of people that neoliberalism hopes to have to serve their needs, the kind of citizen they want that must come out of the university as well. We also need to be mindful, very, very mindful, of the neoliberal agenda in terms of the proliferation of private universities and colleges whose mission is to prepare students specifically for the workplace and not for the development of their critical, creative, and social action skills. So they're mushrooming all over. And this has led many higher education institutions globally to relinquish their academic and societal roles in favor of the market and the value it attaches to profit and financial gains, and not to serve the scientific and cultural values and their gains according to Al-Hajjah and Muhammad 2021. Consequently, universities have become commodified and their academic freedom has been usurped, since private universities and colleges have come to be seen merely as institutions for obtaining a university qualification that are bought and sold. So how does neoliberalism influence pedagogy? I want to specifically look at the pedagogy now so that we can be mindful of it and also think about how do we subvert this pedagogy so that we don't get our students to fall into the trap of a banking system. But first, let me unpack briefly what pedagogy means. I like Giraud and Simon's definition of pedagogy because according to them, a pedagogy is the integration in practice of a particular curriculum, content and design, classroom strategies and techniques, and a time and space for the practice of those strategies and techniques. I think it gives a holistic the strategies, its time and place, its the curriculum content, it just covers everything. So now let us look at how neoliberalism specifically influences pedagogy. As I first wanted to give you now gradually come down to the pedagogy that is espouses and then to subvert that pedagogy with the alternative pedagogies that I think would be able to subvert the influence. So in a broad sense, neoliberalism begins from the position that market principles should manage social relations. Hence, within the context of higher education, this discourse translates into one of consumer rights, where students view themselves as an entitled customer, purchasing a service, I might add, and ultimately attaining a qualification that will contribute to a future salary. That is what Archer says, 2008. So the adoption of such a culture indicates that it has implications for the very nature of knowing and knowledge and learning and teaching in universities in two ways. Firstly, as pointed out by Ball, the relationship between lecturers and students becomes increasingly commodified because knowledge is commodified. Since the focus is on measurable performativity, and this has cropped up at numerous conferences, this measurable performativity. This measurable performativity focuses actually on a return on investment logic from business principles, which characterizes education as a private rather than a public good, manifesting in high-stakes testing and accountability regimes which place universities, lecturers, and students in competition with each other in a culture of performance. And this is Hastings 2019. And we see how this manifests. And also technicist workload models. That's also a kind of idea of how neoliberalism comes into play in the university space, where maybe colleagues have to spend 3 hours to fill out a form, which cuts into their research time and all their other work as well. So secondly, as pointed out by Hughes, the neoliberal education sold by universities to undergraduate students is reduced to a commodity as part of an economic exchange. That is how it comes in. And then this leads the student now, who is not a student, he's a consumer, to find the easiest and most economical way to attain a degree, which results in them internalizing this form of consumer identity, which places them outside of the intellectual community. Very well said by Naidu and Williams, 2015, quoted by them. Hence, these students perceive themselves now, and going back to the banking system, as passive consumers of education who abdicate their own responsibility for learning. So they move away from learning. This approach to teaching and learning is closely aligned, as I mentioned, to a banking system where the lecturer is perceived to be the knower, and the students are expected to accept the knowledge as the gospel without critically engaging with the content or with the issues that it raises. So a key feature of the pedagogy associated with neoliberalism is that students are passive recipients. Teaching can be organized into behavioral and other outcomes that are measurable. Can't be measured. So that is a problem. So if we're only going to follow that, and according to Edward Said, students to be thoughtful, layered, complex, and critical thinkers. So Edward Said makes it is very, very alienating. And it's designed to reinforce the hegemonic power relations that place the learner in a passive position, thereby replicating unequal power relations through their insistence on hierarchical knowledge generation and transfer, And in this context, educators are viewed as powerful agents that students find particularly difficult to challenge or contradict. And such an approach to pedagogy, to which neoliberalism strongly subscribes, leads students to doubt their contributions in the classroom, thereby restricting active participation. So that is, I wanted to give you a picture of how it's manifesting within our, in pedagogy, within the classroom space. And now I want to give you an overview of pedagogies that I think we can maybe embrace to subvert this positivistic way of thinking, where this banking system, where students are empty vessels to be filled, which was a theory many years ago as well. So while neoliberal thinking promotes a mechanistic approach to learning without critical reflection and introspection, we find that critical pedagogy by Frey and transformative pedagogies, these pedagogies have a significant role to play in terms of enabling us to reflect on how we can enable our students to be critical and creative thinkers. And this is where I want to come in with what Camus says about existentialism from the myth of Sisyphus. I think some of our colleagues will know the story about Sisyphus, where, you know, he tries to push a rock up and it keeps on coming down and he keeps on pushing it up, and, you know, and there's no, he doesn't really know what to do because he's not thinking, you know, properly. So Camus is very dramatic. He's one of the great philosophers of existentialism, and you know, he contributed significantly to our ideas of knowing and living and meaningfulness, the meaningfulness of life, etc. And in this one excerpt from the myth of Sisyphus, Camus says, and then it happens that the stage collapses. And so, rising, streetcar, 4 hours in the office or the factory, meal, streetcar, 4 hours of work, meal, sleep, and Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, according to the same rhythm. This path is easily followed most of the time, but one day, the why arises, and everything begins in that weariness tinged with amazement. The why, the question why. That is where the problem solving comes in, the critical pedagogy. So when you look, if we examine that quotation of Camus from his text, 1955, Myth of Sisyphus, when we look at that quotation, we can see those are the kind of people that neoliberalists want to produce. Right? So we need to think about how do we subvert that kind of thinking. And we can understand why they want those people. Because they don't want them to think. They don't want them to critique. They don't want them to be critical. They don't want them to be agents of change, because they must serve the market economy, privatization, commodification of knowledge, and that kind of a thing. So this is where I now want to focus specifically on the various pedagogies, and I want to focus on transformative pedagogy first. It's a bit theoretical, ladies and gentlemen, these various pedagogies, but eventually what I aim to do is I want to align the theory with the practice by showing you some examples from practice as well, but I'm going to do that at the end. But I first want to just mention what each of these pedagogies are, so that we have an understanding of what the pedagogies are, and if you want to maybe explore using these pedagogies within the context of your own teaching and learning, then you could go ahead and use them. But I've explored the use of these over my 36 years of teaching experience in high school, primary school, high school, and at university as well. So the first one, transformative pedagogy. This pedagogy is also described as critical pedagogy by Frey, liberatory pedagogy. A number of our colleagues are working in this field of critical pedagogy. And according to Kedkar and Nair, they view transformative pedagogy as a combination of constructivist and critical strategies that empower students to examine their existing experiences, enable them to develop a reflective base, appreciate multiple perspectives of reality, and develop critical consciousness. So the whole notion of critical consciousness revolves around action, reflection, which leading to praxis, you know. So this whole idea of that we act and then we reflect. So we are thinking about what we're actually doing. So this is very much a driving force in terms of transformative pedagogy. So in terms of transformative pedagogy, it is not the accumulation of knowledge that we are interested in. We are interested in the processes involved in learning. And this comes from Mesereau, you know, one of the founding fathers of transformative pedagogy. You know, he's written extensively on this topic. So the advantage of transformative pedagogy is that it's inclusive, collaborative, facilitates the development of a democratic, dialogical classroom, and it offers ample opportunities for critical engagement, which neoliberalism tends to reject vehemently. They don't want it. Okay, so this is because the focus of neoliberalism is on preparing students for the job market and not for their roles as democratic citizens. So the way that I perceive transformative pedagogy is as agency pedagogy. So this is a combination of what I call social constructivist principles aligned to critical pedagogy. So social constructivism from Vygotsky's idea and Frey's critical pedagogy. The reason why I look at it from that perspective, because ultimately we want our teacher educators to be agents of change. So a combination of the two will contribute to them becoming agents of change, because they will be serving particular communities, and they should not be going through a kind of a system where they just basically going through the mills of teaching, but they also need to serve the community. So they need to be agents of hope and change. And if we follow a neoliberalist agenda, we're going to find that this is not going to really work, you know. So the pedagogical practices associated with transformative learning include the creation of a trusting relationships and opportunities for critical reflection, collaborative learning, and experiential activities. So you can see that in this kind of classroom setup, the students and the lecturer are working collaboratively for meaning making. So there's a shared understanding, there's sharing of ideas, and the lecturer doesn't actually see himself as a knower, but he's also one who's learning. And in this way, there's a co-construction of knowledge. So in terms of open dialogue, the lecturer creates an opportunity for students to participate in dialogical engagement on issues of concern, to share ideas, to open up a space for critical a discussion of critical issues, interrogating specific issues of concern. So this dialogical engagement is very much a part of transformative pedagogy, because it enables the students to then also bring in their own ideas, and also for the lecturer to be able to critically engage with the students and understand the backgrounds where they're coming from. In terms of critical consciousness, it gives the students an opportunity to engage critically with issues of concern. So they don't just accept things at face value, but that they also engage with issues. And then I think a very important component of critical consciousness is reflection. So, and we know how important that is, you know, that we have to, in our action, we also need to reflect in terms of what we're doing, how we're doing it, what we're teaching. So we want our pre-service teachers to also be prepared with this critical consciousness, so that they can reflect on the way they're teaching in the classroom, what's working, what's not working, why is it not working, and those kinds of issues. So that praxis, I think, is of paramount importance. And that was the pedagogy, transformative pedagogy, where we can see the focus is on supporting students to rethink, to think differently, to reflect, to critically engage with issues. The next one that I want to focus on is culturally responsive pedagogy. So when we look at culturally responsive pedagogy, this pedagogy is a pedagogy which recognizes the diverse cultural backgrounds, languages, talents, and experiences of learners for the creation of inclusive and engaging learning environments. So within the context of our own classes, we want to create opportunities for our students to share their languages, their funds of knowledge, their backgrounds, their experiences, so that we don't stifle their learning, and we open up a space for them to share their views, etc. So cultural issues, I know that in many instances in our faculty as well, we're using multilingualism. We're giving the students an opportunity to use their own home languages as well. But we also need to recognize the experiences and the culture and where they're coming from, and then try to work this into our pedagogies. And I have worked on this as well, and I'll share some ideas on how I did it and what was the outcome as well, because I think that would be the crux of this discussion. So the recognition of students' cultural backgrounds is associated, according to research, with higher levels of academic achievement, because students are more likely to be active participants in the learning process, since they can connect the experiences to the curriculum. Otherwise, the curriculum is completely disconnected from the life worlds of the students. So we need to find a way of enabling them to bring in their own life experiences, their own funds of knowledge, their talents. I've used students' talents to teach, create exciting opportunities in the class where we use talents, where we construct knowledge. So I'm talking about something that I've been doing. You know, it's not something, it's not theoretical, but I'm kind of trying to use the theory to explain, you know, how I got to where I have, what I've reached eventually. So the realization of critical culturally responsive pedagogy is dependent, of course, on academics who are committed to cultural competence, position themselves as both facilitators and learners, and have high expectations of the students. And many academics may struggle with positionality, you know, to share that shared meaning making. So that could perhaps be a bit problematic. Also, depending on the paradigm they're coming from, if they're not recognizing the cultures and languages of other students, then it will be difficult for them to try to help those students because they have a particular narrow-minded, tunnel vision paradigm that will militate against them trying to incorporate the funds of knowledge or the other perspectives, multiple perspectives of reality or multiple historical perspectives into the classroom space. So culturally responsive lecturers recognize the significance of developing strong connections with their students, and they create a very supportive, inclusive environment where everyone is respected, where views are respected, cultural practices are respected, etc. So if we want to incorporate culturally responsive instructional strategies in the class, we need to use relevant materials, examples, and activities that resonate with the students' cultural identities and experiences. So we also need to undergo some transformation to be able to relate to the students who we are actually teaching. So when we embrace culturally responsive teaching, lecturers can create inclusive classrooms where all students feel valued, supported, and empowered to learn. And what I have found in my reading as well, and some of our colleagues will know, the funds of knowledge philosophy, Gonzalez and et al., what they wanted to do was they wanted to have a better understanding of Mexican-American culture. So they went to the homes of Mexican-American parents, and they had researchers going to those homes to have a look at what are the ways of living, ways of knowing, perspectives, etc., and experiences. And on the basis of that knowledge which they collected, They use that to inform the ways of teaching within the classroom space in American, multi-ethnic American schools. So I want to say that according to them, people are competent, they have knowledge and life experiences that have given them that knowledge. So likewise, I want to say that the students have knowledge, they have life experiences, they are not tabula rasas. They come with knowledge. They come with something. So why don't we tap into what they have and use that as a starting point to generate our classes? And I've experimented with that. And it's important for our pre-service teachers to be properly prepared in terms of culturally responsive pedagogies, because they will be teaching in diverse environments, working with students from different ethnic groups and cultural backgrounds. So they need to be properly prepared because they can't use a one-size-fits-all. And that's what neoliberalism wants, one-size-fits-all. We mustn't think about anything else. The last pedagogy that I want to focus on is arts-based pedagogies. Now, we find that in many instances, lecturers may not be too willing to implement arts-based pedagogies because of maybe time constraints. But there are ways of working around this. So arts-based pedagogy is a pedagogical approach to teaching and learning. It focuses on the incorporation of the various art forms, that is dance, drama, music, visual art, photographs, poetry, film, movement, among many others. And we have colleagues in our faculty who are, Marley is quite well versed in dance education, using that quite extensively and writing prolifically as well. So we're seeing that the arts is a very powerful mechanism to deconstruct the thinking of our students as well. So one of the, I would say, according to Eisner, the significance of arts-based pedagogy is that it enables one to create oneself, expand consciousness, shape your dispositions, satisfy the quest for meaning, establish contact with others, and to share culture. So when we're using arts-based pedagogies, it's kinesthetic learning. So we're using, in many instances, we're using the body quite prolifically. And I agree with Beagle when she says that when we look at the implementation of arts-based pedagogies, it deepens learning by providing opportunities for visceral, emotive, and embodied experiences that enhance cognition. So if you think of the visceral and the emotional, and you put them together, you can see, the power of the arts. And the fact that the arts is so marginalized also says something in terms of what we need to do, in terms of how we should revive it in the context where we find ourselves. One of the arts-based pedagogies that I have embraced quite prolifically is drama pedagogy. Drama pedagogy is also known as process drama. So I've been using it quite substantially in my lecture rooms with as much as 100 students. We have been using drama pedagogy. So the drama pedagogy entails that we are not producing a play for an audience for aesthetic appeal. We are using it as a mechanism to critically engage with issues of concern affecting society. So we use, the methods we use for drama pedagogy are tableau, improvisation, and we use, we can also use theatre in education, which then takes the drama pedagogy out of the classroom to a wider space, which I'll share with you in my photographs of work that students did. But in terms of drama pedagogy as well, you give the opportunities to improvise. So they're using their critical and creative thinking skills. They're using their body. They're using their mind. They're using, it leads to visceral and emotive learning as well. So when we look at arts-based pedagogy, for example, I have embraced theatre in education as well, where my students produce pieces of theatre on social issues. I used to present a module, Issues and Challenges in Education, and that focused on a variety of issues affecting education. So we'd get our students to create pieces of theatre. And on some occasions, what we did was we were able to showcase the pieces of theatre to a wider audience, even outside of the classroom. And on one occasion, the students presented their pieces of theatre in North Campus Auditorium, and we invited learners to come in and watch those pieces of theatre. And I think I want to, before I conclude, I want to actually share this with you so that you kind of have a sense of what it actually entails. And I want to start off here with this particular photo. Exercises for the whole school. So we had 100 children. We had these two students doing these. And ladies and gentlemen, this is coming from. Where did it come from? It started in the lecture room, with the discussions on hegemony, marginalization, etc. And it came from him. They said to me, do it. And then here we have one of our students here, the great hip hop artist. So that's where the funds of knowledge comes in, because I use his talents of hip hop in my class to try to motivate our learners and to use hip hop as well. So when we went to Janssenville, and he had a group of students and learners, they said, we want to do hip hop for the play, for our item for the play. And he taught in hip hop. He's now a HOD, this young man from the school. He's a fantastic guy. Great asset to our education faculty, doing amazing work in the schools. And then they also, when they went into the classrooms, they wanted to engage with the children. So then they all started singing and creating merriment and happiness, etc., within their classroom space. So this is the students I've been teaching, amazing students that have left a legacy behind, an indelible mark on me as I'm almost ending my academic career. And so we went in 3 cars. We went to the school Toekomst in Janssenville, and then we worked with the teachers. So I'm saying that these kind of projects, which many of our colleagues are doing amazing work in our faculty. Congratulations to you guys. Really amazing work, and with rural communities and outlying areas, etc. But I just wanted to share this with transformative pedagogy. We're using the theory, critical thinking and all of that, and especially we were looking at Gramscian thinking, hegemony, how hegemony manifests in society, and those kinds of things. And then the second one, with my good friend Professor Nzanga,
we were working in the most outlying areas of the Eastern Cape, in Kumbu and Tazana, and we were working with teachers who were upgrading their skills. So Professor Zanga and myself decided that what we were going to do is, whenever we attended for quality assurance, we're going to have an open day and invite all the village children to come to the school, our center, to prepare them for the matric exam, because we are English teachers, so we're going to prepare them for first additional English, to teach them the poems. So poems and short stories. So when we went there once, then she did the short stories and I did the poems. So then we spoke about that to my class. And then we were talking about what contribution, what legacy can you leave behind. And the students said, we want to go. We want to come with you guys. We want to go to that place. And they even used their own car. And we traveled to Kumbu. And that time, Dr. Khatija Adam joined us as well. Professor Adam was with us. And the students did such amazing lessons. The children were like, it was like mind-boggling, because they used drama and education to teach the matric poems to the rural children. And then we also tried to look at the questions in terms of how do you answer those questions. So that because of the visceral and emotive learning, it leads to cognitive development. Because when you use your body and your mind, we tend to neglect the body. And if you're only listening, like you are now, you're not really engaged in anything, much. You're just listening. But when you use the body and the mind, it leads to higher cognitive development. So yeah, and they were so amazing. These students are all in very high positions now. One student is the HOD in drama at Collegiate, and Jai is in the director of planning in Vietnam at a private institution. So they've really, our faculty, I really want to say that the kind of students that we have produced over the years, we really give credit to all our faculty members for the amazing work that they do. Because we all come from different angles. And here, Edley, Mr. Edley he's showcasing the poem Auto. There's a poem Auto, but he's doing it in a dramatic way to engage the students so they can understand better what happens during accident. And he is also now got a very high position abroad as well. And then for cultural responsive pedagogy, what I thought of, we were doing diversity pedagogy in our classes. So I said to the students, I had 100 students in class, and I said, you know what, why don't we have an open day? Because we spoke about culturally responsive pedagogy and the funds of knowledge. So why don't we have a sharing of the funds of knowledge? So we had a sharing of the funds of knowledge, at the South Campus. We had a beautiful day, and it was very interesting, and it was really touching for me to see how students from other ethnic groups wanted to know cultural practices of groups that they didn't always engage with. So this group was showcasing isiXhosa culture and all the aspects relating to that, so that other students in the class who didn't know what it meant, they could really understand. And this young lady, who you see, the power of arts-based pedagogy is that it enables you to reflect and also to become part of something. She wanted to experience what it is to be a isiXhosa bride. So we had a group of ladies who took her one side and explained to her, these are all the rituals and customs. So when she had to do her presentation, she was able to say, these are the things that we do. And she was internalizing it as if she is that bride. So very, very powerful. These pedagogies are really, really powerful. And they wanted to create a tableau where they show how we value diversity. So they use their hands to show that togetherness and collaboration, collaborative learning, creating a collaborative learning environment. Now using the arts-based pedagogy. This is the theatre and education pieces. That group specifically wanted to look at the forced removals of people in Sophia Town. And they did extensive reading, historical backgrounds of Sophia Town, etc. And they collated it into a wonderful piece of theatre, which they shared with everyone. What does it mean to lose your possessions, your life? What does it mean to lose your identity, who you are? loss in all its manifestations were then demonstrated there. So they were able to critically reflect on what does it mean to be forced out of the area, and all the issues relating to forced removals. And here we used, they were looking at specifically focusing on how people who suffer from HIV and AIDS are stigmatized, the whole issue of stigmatization. So they said, let us combine our knowledge of drama with music. And so they put the two together and they created this amazing piece of theater as well. So also coming out from our discussions in class as well. And in this piece here, we spoke about humanizing pedagogy, and they decided that they wanted to present a play where they showed what it means to be a humanizing teacher and what it means to be a dehumanizing teacher. And then we invited the learners from schools to come and have a look at the play. And the learners were asking the actors, all kind of questions. And it was almost like therapeutic for the learners, because they were saying, you know what, this is what we're experiencing. This is the kind of teacher we have. And they don't allow us to ask questions or whatever. So, and they were looking at what kind of teacher should we have. So we can combine these arts-based pedagogies, and we can fashion it according to the way we want to within the context of our own learning. This very, very powerful ways of teaching and learning. And in this particular case, they wanted to showcase how marginalized children can also rise above these circumstances. So they based their play using Maya Angelou's poem, Still I Rise, I Rise, I Rise, I Rise. And so what they did was they used the verses of the poem to indicate how this young man who was from a gangster-ridden environment, they were portraying the role of that, how he actually becomes a public speaker, and how he actually becomes someone who makes a significant contribution to society at large. And here we are interrogating what it means, diversity, and all the antagonists that want to subvert diversity. They're saying down with this, and down with that, and down with that, because they are the dissenting voices that don't want diversity to flourish. So they don't like diversity. So we're looking at the pros and cons as well. And I want to end off, I'm going to conclude now, it's been quite long. I want to end off by saying that we went further to explore filmmaking, and there you see all our beautiful colleagues, and we made a movie. And there you see our acting, you see as well, who played a pivotal role, and all our beautiful colleagues, and we made a fantastic movie. Like a 12-minute movie, but it was well received by colleagues and staff, and it was ad-lib kind of a script. So those are the visuals that I actually wanted to share with you, relating to the practical side. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to conclude now by saying that when we look at the emergence of neo-liberalism principles in higher education, it of course poses a major threat to the academic freedom that we have enjoyed over many, many, many decades. That freedom is now being subverted. And because they want the students to be obedient, competitive, inward-looking, and they want a one-size-fits-all kind of approach to teaching and learning. I want to say that when we looked at the three pedagogies that I shared with you, including the culturally responsive pedagogy and the arts-based pedagogy and the pedagogy, the similarities, the synergy. All three are focusing on dialogical engagement, and they're also focusing on autonomy, and they're also focusing on praxis, action and reflection. Reflection is a very, very, very important part of our engagement with these pedagogies. And I want to end by just quoting the words from the poem Ulysses, a most beautiful, beautiful poem. Ulysses decides to leave the kingdom and to hand over the scepter and the crown to Telemachus, his son.
And he tells Telemachus, you know, I'm leaving now because I want to explore new worlds, I want to meet new people, I want to have new experiences. And the two lines that captured my attention when my teacher taught me this poem in grade 11, the grade 11 class, and it stayed with me forever. All experience is an arch where through gleams the untraveled world. That arch is never ending. Those experiences are never ending. We're meeting people, we're experiencing, we're learning, we're traveling. And he says, let us strive, seek, and find, but never yield. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I say, let us strive to find new ways of knowing, new ways of learning, new ways of being, new ways of thinking, new ways of engaging, so that we can subvert the influence of neoliberalism on the pedagogy in our higher education institutions. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I say thank you so much for listening to this very long lecture.
Acting Vice-Chancellor, Deans, colleagues, esteemed guests, friends and family of Professor Athiemoolam, and of course all our online guests as well. Good evening, goeienaand, molweni. As we draw this inaugural lecture to a close, it is my privilege to offer a few words of thanks and of reflection. Firstly, let me extend our gratitude to our newly inaugurated professor, Professor Athiemoolam. I've known Professor Athiemoolam for many years. We used to teach together at the then Vista University, as he referred to it as a family and a home from home. So I also remember those days. It was quite, I fondly remember them still, Logam. So it's a very special moment for me to also do these closing remarks for you. Professor Athiemoolam, your insightful presentation has enlightened us and provided us with a deeper understanding of how to rethink our pedagogical approaches in teacher education to subvert the Neo-Liberal stronghold on higher education. Your work not only advances knowledge in your field of study, but also highlights aspects such as what are the key features of Neo-Liberalism and how it manifests itself in society, what are the key drivers of this agenda in society, and the impact of Neo-Liberalism on higher education specifically, and how it influences the relational engagement between lecturers and students. Your analysis extends to an examination of the pedagogies that could counter the negative externalities that impacts this mindset on what should be the preferred stances in higher education, such as preparing to become engaged citizens, being agents of change, being critical thinkers, and so on. Your lecture enabled us to understand that you propose 3 pedagogies that could enhance the learning and teaching experiences and also limit the perceived negative externalities of Neo-Liberalism on higher education. Of course, these include, as you quite articulated, transformative pedagogy, cultural responsive pedagogy, as well as arts-based pedagogy. Your lecture enabled us to understand that these proposed pedagogies may lead to dialogical engagement, critical and creative thinking, critical consciousness, as well as various reflective praxis. These insights are not only relevant to the academic community, but have immeasurable value and impact on our broader society. Tonight's lecture was testament of the importance of the academic discourse and the sharing of knowledge with all different people, places, and of course, spaces. The lecture reminds us of the impact of scholarly work on our everyday life. Furthermore, I would also like to thank every person who contributed to making this evening and event a success. From the staff in the Registrar's office, our communications and marketing department, faculty support staff, academic members, your hard work have ensured that tonight's lecture ran smoothly. To our technical team that provided the online support and the technical expertise, thank you for a smooth process, even changing the batteries. I also bring you the well wishes from the President of our Alumni Association, and with that said, before I forget, Professor Athiemoolam, a welcome gift from the President of the Alumni Society, and welcome you to the alumni as such.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, they want us to present it again quickly. There we go. And of course, to all present here tonight, physically and online, your presence, of course, enriched the event. And then Professor Athiemoolam also asked us to reiterate some special thanks to people. He just want to make sure that they understand his thankfulness towards their contribution, and as he describes it, to my amazing parents. And so I use the word specifically that he asked me to use, to say my amazing parents. And of course to his family, both in South Africa and abroad. Of course also Professor Susan van Rensburg and colleagues from the Willow Secondary School, colleagues from the Faculty of Education. You heard throughout, he complimented you in his lecture as a job well done to all your students. And of course then Malva von Mollendorf, Kirsten von Bromsen, Claude Laurenscheidt, as well as Nicole Hummel, and Wolfgang Nitsch, of course the German drama team also. And then of course colleagues from UKZN and of course Northwest University that also played a role in the shaping of his thoughts, ideas and praxis, and of course then also Dr. Abeder and Dr. Bakker. All of those people, Professor Athiemoolam wants to thank you with a sincere gratitude for the role you played in his life. So as we leave this inaugural lecture, let us carry the inspiration and knowledge that we've gained. So in conclusion, please remember that an inaugural lecture is only the beginning of many discussions and academic engagements with a variety of stakeholders and publics. Processes such as these are our affirmation that excellence is a top priority at Nelson Mandela University. Thank you for attending this inaugural lecture, and of course, don't leave. Please join us for the refreshments in the foyer. Travel safely back home tonight, and we hope to see you at all the other inaugural lectures that still remain for academic year 2024. Thank you, dankie, en kosi.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So let's go out there.
Okay.